Reed, have you had an adequate opportunity to review the pre-sentence report and the sentencing information with your client?
We have, Your Honor.
Additions, corrections, or deletions?
No, Your Honor.
Then, Mr. Valet.
Well, Judge, I read over the PSI with some interest. My concern is that Mr. Williams I'm concerned about his connection with how, the reality of where things are. I appreciate that his position is that this was an accident, that he brought it into jail. I suppose anything could happen. But I mean, here you have a guy who's on the grace of the court by doing weekends and ends up with drugs inside the jail, and his explanation is he put the wrong pair of socks on when he did it. I'm concerned also about.
I think you missed the bigger picture there. This is all the fault of the jail because it's so darn cold, and
it is.
Wouldn't need all these
It's
socks.
Extremely cold, I guess. I'm also concerned, though. It appears to me that Mr. Williams has some skills. He's held. I looked at his employment record. He clearly, I don't know if it's in tool and die or machining or something, but he's had jobs here that paid, I think one of them was, $48 an hour, and $30 an hour was regular. And he's been unable to keep these, and he indicates that he's been sober for a year, but I look, he's just in March of last year, I believe he was arrested in Kent County for driving under the influence and having some drugs. So all I'm saying, Judge, is that I worry about a person who says that this has been a learning experience because I've lost my career of 16 years, when arguably I wish it were that simple. I wish he had a career of 16 years. What he has is enough employment to just move on to whatever else is next, I guess. So I don't know. He has his story. I don't know if he was trying to bring the drugs in for his own use, if he was trying to bring them for somebody else, or if it was an accident. Whatever it is, I have some significant concerns for him going forward. And while I appreciate his guidelines here, I think this recommendation is, while not inappropriate, certainly if it was higher, wouldn't be out of line either. I realize that he got 365 days. I don't know what that ended up being and how much time he had left to serve out of the district court for violating. But clearly taking drugs inside the jail, we can send them to the Department of Corrections. They can get all the drugs they want, I guess, but we've been pretty lucky about not getting them in the jail. It's serious, but more importantly, I'm concerned about Mr. Williams. I think he needs some the thinking program or thinking matters program, something, because it appears to be some kind of disconnect from what he views and what at least I view as being the reality. Otherwise, Judge, I leave it to you for a sentence.
All right, and then Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Your Honor. My client is going to make a statement to the court as well. But first, I would like to say that clearly my client struggles with a substance use disorder, and it is a disease. He has experienced significant clean time. He's worked for and earned recovery at different points in his life. Unfortunately, he let go of that, and this was the result. As the prosecutor pointed out, my client does have a great skill set. He's intelligent, he's talented, he's hardworking, and I believe that he can get back on track, and he can use those skills that he had to be a productive member of our community. After he's released from jail, he will be living with his parents, who are very supportive. They've been at every court hearing with him or to support him. I believe we are here today, right? And his dad actually as his career was a substance abuse counselor. Is that right?
Yeah.
At one point he was. So his parents are not I wouldn't classify as enablers or helicopter parents that we often see. I truly believe they're going to hold him accountable and help him to be successful in recovery. I believe that the COGS class is among the recommendations. In the terms
It
of
is
probation.
number 7.
The guidelines here, Your Honor, would not support an MDOC sentence. I think that the recommendation is fair, and we're asking the court to impose the recommendation to show some mercy to my client while imposing a fair punishment. And I'm confident that he will be successful while on probation.
Mr. Williams, what do you want to say before the court imposes sentence?
Your Honor, I admit that I brought the drugs in intentionally. I was afraid to admit what I did. I'm ready to be honest today. And to be honest, I'm going to recover from my substance abuse.
Anything else?
Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Could I just add to that briefly? I know that was a difficult statement for my client to make. Obviously, dishonesty goes along with substance abuse disorders, as does living in constant fear. So I asked the court to show some mercy again for the fact that he hasn't been honest, but recognize that he is accepting responsibility today, and that was a big step for him.
All right. Well, Mr. Williams, I don't know that I give a ton of weight to a late arriving honesty or not. It doesn't really change anything as far as the sentence that I'm going to impose and the reasons I'm going to impose it. I would just know that you've had a pretty long, sort of convoluted explanation to probation about how all this occurred and how it got in there. And it is odd, Mr. Blaze, correct? You suggest, I interpreted your statement as somehow you were living in your car at the time, or at least between residents, if you will, commuting from Traverse City and grabbed the wrong socks and the wrong suitcase or whatever the case may be. So I read this to mean that you just kind of didn't have any place to stay at the time and all your stuff was in the car. So it's interesting now that it sounds like you have a place to go that's stable, it's your parents' place or not. But the point of why I don't know that a statement today makes a big impact on the court is the fact that you don't have the opportunity to hear the court's thoughts on things and here every Thursday when we're sentencing people. But you've already been given what the media, what our Supreme Court, what most people on the outside looking in think is the key to sobriety, and that's medically assisted treatment. Okay, and if we're going to cut right to the chase, when we talk about specialty courts, and everybody thinks that's the key, the panacea, that's how we fix everybody. The specialty courts are the ones that have the ability then to work with, in fact, they have nurses and doctors that are part of their roundtables, and they involve themselves in medically assisted treatment. And all of that's fantastic, right? Because it works for some people. My chief complaint about all is that the recidivism rate for people that are engaged in that is only remotely better than just people that aren't engaged in specialty courts for medically assisted treatment. And so the argument becomes, when we put so much of our resources and time and effort into those courts, what's the payoff, right? Now, maybe there's a moral argument that if we help 3 out of 10 instead of only 2 out of 10, then it doesn't matter. Spend all the dollars we have to, because if we reach that one person, then it's worth it. I don't know, right? And I guess that's a decision that taxpayers and those folks that vote have to make with the folks that they put into the House and Senate and the governorship and make the laws, right? So that I think that's a bigger debate. But here's my point: you've engaged in it. You've already participated in that. It's another way of saying that you have the tools, unlike a lot of folks that we see, to not continue to go down this path. Now, we're all experienced in this courtroom. None of us are Pollyanna enough to say, nobody falls off the wagon. I got that, but there's a little bit of a difference between falling off the wagon and then falling off the wagon where I'm already been placed on supervision. I've already been given the grace of doing weekends so that I can continue to try to get my life on the straight and narrow, so to speak. And then when we engage in this kind of behavior, you're then endangering not just yourself, but every other inmate that could have come into contact with those drugs, every correctional officer that works there. And, at the end of the day, they all just want to go home and keep their life on the straight and narrow. So whether we've come to Jesus, so to speak, today and been truthful, this just doesn't interest me, honestly. I'm going to impose a sentence that I think is appropriate. And I hope that you do get it right, because Mr. Valet is correct. I also noted you've got an interesting, let's just put it that way, employment history with some really good paying jobs that people would give their right arm for, frankly, the wages that you were making, but you don't stay in any one place for more than a hot minute. And that's really weird, because I don't know how you keep getting jobs, because if I'm an employer and I just do a little search and you've been at this place, so says, well, why am I hiring you then? That makes no sense. And I don't know if leaving all these places is a result of drug use. I don't know if leaving all those places is, I don't know what it is. In fact, when I see stuff like that, drug use and or alcohol, or sometimes ADE, folks just can't, they can get hired, but they can't keep a job. I don't know. But it doesn't bode well for the future, I don't think, because you haven't demonstrated that you can pick a path and stay on the path. So I'm willing to try it again. I'm going to place you on a period of supervision. I'm going to do that for 3 years. I think Mr. Valet is correct. We're recommending in item 7 here, you complete the COG program. Again, I don't want to sound like doomsday, but I don't know that that's going to make a big difference, right? You're a bright guy. We can see that. A lot of talents. And you've been through a lot of this programming previously. I don't know if it's specific to COG, which is how we go about the decision-making process and how we make better decisions and all of that. But you'll get out of it what you put into it. I feel like you're just a guy that's had these tools and for whatever reason can't just use them and stay on the straight and narrow, but we'll try. So we'll do COG. I'll adopt all of these recommendations. There's 30 of them. I'm not going to go over all of them with you. Your probation agent will do that, but we'll also get a substance abuse assessment. We'll follow all the recommendations of that. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If I don't know how long ago the medically assisted treatment was, I don't recall, but if we have something recent we can use that. I don't know. Other mental health issues is an issue. Maybe we should get a mental health evaluation too. We can follow all the issues, all the recommendations of that. The other stuff should be familiar to you. You obviously can't use drugs or alcohol while you're on supervision. You'll be tested randomly for the same. I'm going to require that you maintain employment. All right. So at least 30 hours a week, or a combination of your employment and the probation obligations. There's the old saying about idle hands, right? Well, if we can keep you busy, maybe that will help. And obviously you have the ability to not just work, but work in meaningful jobs that give you meaningful pay. I'm required, Mr. Williams, to impose a $68 state cost, and I'll do that. I'm required to impose $130 in crime victims assessment, and I'll do that. There'll be attorney fees of $400. A fine of $500, court costs of $550. While you're being supervised, your supervision fees will be $30 per month, unless you're on an electronic monitoring device. And one has not been recommended now, but if it does happen, then that'll be $60 a month. All right, I am gonna tweak the recommendation in 20. You got a guideline range of 0 to 11. I like to start in the middle, and in that sense, that's what the recommendation was. But I don't know that. Well, it certainly I understand and don't dispute that it's a reasonable recommendation. I just don't think that it adequately covers what I believe was a pretty egregious offense here. I'm going to send you to 9 months in the Montgomery County Jail with credit for 66 days that you have previously served.
Judge, I think he should have 76 days credit.
All right, so we'll give him updated credit, 76 days. All right. And Mr. Williams, part of my thought process there is certainly punishment. right? I want to make sure that other folks that are out there, that if they hear about this, that they recognize that there are consequences for behavior when we're bringing banned substances into the jail. But more importantly, we'll have a solid 9 months, hopefully, as long as there aren't other people bringing things into the jail, where when you get out, stable employment, hopefully stable residence, and 9 months of sobriety, right? So that we can start off on whatever we're gonna do with a clean slate, okay? So you have several months of sobriety under your belt, so to speak, at that point. You do have a right to seek appellate review of the sentence. If you'd like to do that, you have 21 days from today's date to make that request. If you want a court-appointed attorney to assist you, you have a broader window of 42 days.